I have two tanks that I want to make custom backgrounds for. They're both going to be for crested geckos. The first tank is this 18 by 18 by 24 Exoterra. As you can see, I spent some time figuring out where I want my cork pieces to go. The expanding foam I use is the Great Stuff brand. I prefer the black color to anything else because if it does happen to show through the silicone and soil that I'll be putting over top, it looks more natural than the yellow or the white. When figuring out what I want to put on the background, I'm taking into account the general things that I found crested geckos like, as well as what the gecko that will be living in this specific tank likes. Since the foam kind of pushes up and out as it expands, I use some heavy objects to weigh the cork down while it cures. This foam takes 8 hours to fully cure. The second background I'm building is for this hexagon tank. I decided I'm going to build a background on 3 of the sides, starting with the back panel. Making a background on 3 sides means the whole process is going to take quite a bit longer because I have to wait for each side to cure at least well enough so I can turn it over a bit to do the next side. The next morning I got to start on one of my favorite parts, which is the carving. It can be a bit tedious, but I find it really satisfying. Aside from helping with the appearance, carving the foam is creating a rougher surface for the silicone to attach to. At this point I can stand the 18 by 18 by 24 tank up, which is great because this is the first time getting an idea of what it's going to look like. I decided to carve the first back panel I did of the hexagon tank before starting on either of those side panels because I felt like it was going to be harder to carve the foam once I had those other sides done. And this is what the back panel is looking like after it's carved. When I started on the second panel, the spray foam was coming out really thin and squiggly, and it turned out I just needed to replace the straw or whatever that thing is called, which thankfully these cans come with an extra one. So after I replaced it, it was working fine. I let this side cure for a few hours till it was hard enough that I could turn the tank over to do the third side. Once the foam is carved, it's time for the last step, which is to apply the silicone and then your substrate of choice. I decided to use Reptisoil. Some people will use cocoa fiber. It doesn't really matter what substrate you use as long as it's safe for your reptile. I use a brown silicone because it looks more natural. I also use an old cheap brush that I got from the dollar store sometime. I think I've used it for all of my tank builds at this point. It's completely sealed in silicone, but it doesn't really matter. It's literally just used to smush the silicone around onto the background, and then while it's still wet, I toss some soil on there, press it in. I included some sphagnum moss in the background as well. This part of building a background is definitely the messiest part of the whole process. I make sure to wear gloves, and I also put the soil on the bottom of the tank while I'm using it. And when I was done, I obviously swept it up. For that one person who's gonna comment, "Don't throw away good soil," I didn't throw it away, I'm going to reuse it. So the 18 by 18 by 24 tank is now finished as far as the background goes, and it's ready for the rest of the build. So I put it on the rack that it's going to share with some other tank, and I got to work on putting the silicone on the background of the hexagon tank. This is proving to be tricky because there's so many more little cracks and crevices to get to. I also need to use a bit more silicone because it's 3 sides versus 1, and unfortunately my bottle ran out, and I really thought I had a second one, but after looking around everywhere I can't find it, so I must have only had 1 bottle on hand. So that kind of sucks, and it means I have to go to the store and buy some more before I get to finish this tank. But stick around for part 2 because that's when we're going to turn these into fully bioactive planted tanks.